This episode contains explicit content, including profanity and depictions of violence and murder. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening, and welcome back to Friday Night Fiction and the fifth and final part of our story, Dead Cold Drop. Now, let's return to the story. Chapter 23. There was a lot more action in Mandy's neighborhood today. A snowblower was buzzing across the street, and just a few houses down, a hot rod with the hood up stood parked in a sloping driveway, revving and blowing black smoke, a couple of men hovering over the engine, talking and tinkering. Doug let himself into the house through the front door. Cowboy went nuts, starving more for attention than anything else. He took off his parka and tossed it on the couch. He pulled the envelope out of his waistband and dropped it there too. He grabbed the cordless phone from the coffee table and tried calling Mandy again. Still no answer. In the kitchen, he topped off Cowboy's water and dry food, picked up the old tins and set out some fresh ones. He poured in fresh kitty litter and mixed it in. "Well, little guy, that's almost as good as new," he said, bending down and petting Cowboy gently. "This craziness is almost over. Mommy will be home in a few days, okay?" The clock on the oven said 3:38. Time for Peterson and Green. In the living room, he grabbed the cordless and tried Mandy one last time. This time, her friend picked up. Finally, Doug thought. Mandy jumped on the line. "Are you at the lawyer's already?" "No, I'm headed there in a minute. I'm at your place. Just fed Cowboy. But listen, I gotta run this by you real quickly, okay?" He laid it all out for her in one go. It started as a trickle, then gushed out of him like a broken main line. He told her what he had learned from Mike, the third suspect dead and no leads. He told her she should keep the money, call it poetic justice or a miracle or whatever you want to call it, but fuck those guys on Handshake Row. She should open the flower shop. He'd sell the boat as a cover for the funds. "Are you sure?" Mandy asked. "Yeah, I'm sure," he said. Because he was sure. It'd been a long time since he'd felt so certain about anything. Suddenly, he felt a lifetime of regrets bottled up inside of him. "Look, Mandy," he said, suddenly holding back tears. "I'm sorry." "Sorry for what?" she said. "I'm sorry I haven't always been the best father. I haven't always been there for you, at least not in the way you needed." There was a long silence on the line. "Dad, I don't know if this makes any sense," Doug said, "but even when I wasn't there for you, I thought I was doing the right thing. That's the best way I can explain it. I thought I should make sure the bills could be paid, but I'd give anything now to have gone on those trips with you and your mom." Doug swallowed and cleared his throat. "I know you miss your mom. So do I. I've been missing you, too." Doug couldn't tell if Mandy was sighing in frustration or perhaps crying. Through the narrow window bordering the front door, Doug saw the unmistakable outline of a Bismarck PD squad car quietly pulling into the driveway. He moved closer and watched as the patrol car parked beside his truck. "Shit, the cops are here," he said. "What?" Mandy half screamed. "The cops at my place now?" "Hang on," he said, watching and waiting. Two uniformed Bismarck police officers exited a squad car. One of them stood taking in Doug's truck as wind slapped her blonde hair in her face. She turned and said something to her partner. He was older, lanky and tall with gray hair, with his hands on his hips surveying the yard. Doug thought he recognized him, but couldn't place him. "What are they doing?" Mandy said. The blonde cop motioned to the house, and both of them started walking towards the front door. "They're walking to the door," Doug said. "Fuck!" Mandy said. I knew it. Listen, Dad. Doug stepped back from the door, his heart racing. Dad, are you listening? Don't tell them anything. Don't fucking talk to them about the money. The doorbell buzzed. Tell them you have an appointment and then you go to the lawyer right away. Nothing good will come of you talking to them, okay? Go to the lawyer. They're not your friends. The doorbell buzzed again. Just send them away. Tell them you have a lawyer, then call me back. Got it? Okay, Doug said. He hung up, set the phone down, and walked to the door. He grabbed the handle, took a deep breath, and pulled the door open. Chapter 24. The blonde cop was almost as tall as her partner. They both stood with their hands on their belts, smiling and nodding. The man spoke first. Hi there, we're with Bismarck PD. I'm Officer Cronin, and this is Officer Glassbrenner. Doug's heart was off the charts. He just stared, waiting for it all to come down on them. The cops stared back, and when Doug realized he hadn't said anything at all, the words fell out awkwardly, as if he only recently had learned to use his tongue. The blonde cop named Glassbrenner glanced quickly at her partner. Doug swallowed and tried again. I'm Doug Rolfstad. Can I help you with something? Glassbrenner spoke this time, moving hair out of her eyes. Would you mind if we step inside for a moment? This wind, you know. Not at all, Doug heard himself say, stepping aside and holding the door open for them as if they were welcomed guests. The cops took a few steps forward, then stood there in the tiny entryway. Doug closed the door as Cowboy peeked out from the kitchen. Boy, it's really picking up out there, isn't it? Doug managed. Glassbrenner nodded while Officer Cronin's eyes scanned the living room. I was out ice fishing this morning and it was calm the whole time. So what's this all about? Doug didn't know why he was even bothering with the game. He knew why they were there, and now he was very aware that the manila envelope was laying just a few feet away on the couch in plain sight. On those TV cop shows, they always talked about search warrants. He could almost hear Mandy's disappointment and irritated voice now. You mean you just let them walk right in? Doug shuffled 2 steps to the left in an attempt to position himself between the cops and the couch. Do you live here, Mr. Rolfstad? Glassbrenner asked. Here? No, this is my daughter's place. I'm just here to feed the cat. Watching the place, you know. She's not here right now. Is there something I can help you with? Where is she? She asked. Mandy's visiting friends, Doug offered. He almost told them that she was in Valley City, but this time he caught himself. Officer Cronin pulled out his notepad and flipped to a page. I assume your daughter is Mandy Rolfstad, then? Doug swallowed hard, waiting for it. That's right. He wanted to scream. He wanted to blurt it all out and get it over with. His words were ready, suddenly feeling rehearsed. He would explain how Mandy had just been pulled into this mess by a bunch of crack-smoking morons with poor penmanship. He would tell them that they had a lawyer. Well, Cronin said, we got a call from a neighbor to do a welfare check. Sounds like maybe she forgot to tell folks she was leaving town or something. A concerned neighbor called it in. Doug licked his lips, his mind catching up to what was happening, his eyes darting back and forth between the 2 officers. A welfare check. When he did manage to speak, all he said was, Oh. Glassbrenner's eyes darted around the room. So your daughter is visiting friends then? Doug nodded. Is everything okay with her? Oh, you betcha, Doug blurted. I was just talking to her on the phone when you guys pulled up. She's fine. Cronin was scribbling in his notebook. Where did she go then? Oh, Fargo, I think. I'm not sure exactly. And the name of her friends she's with? Doug swallowed hard. Honestly, I don't know. I just feed the cat when she's gone. Daughters don't tell their dads everything, you know. Doug smiled and chuckled, but the cops didn't seem amused. Chapter 25. Do you have a phone number we can reach her at? Officer Cronin asked. Doug didn't answer. His mind was racing. Mandy had told him not to share the Valley City number with anyone, not even the lawyer. It's just for our report, the cop added, looking at Doug, his pen paused and waiting on his notepad. We don't need to call her now that we have an explanation, just documenting for our report. Well, no, I don't have a number for her, I'm sorry. Thought you said you just talked to her. I did, Doug said. She called here, though. I don't have the number. As soon as he said it, he realized it was a stupid thing to say. Didn't Mandy have caller ID and that *69 thing to dial the last person who called you? Doug felt like he was digging his own grave. Cronin nodded, his face looking a little skeptical now. Okay, no phone number. Officer Glassbrenner spoke now, with a smile Doug felt was a little too broad and smirky, like she suddenly felt she was very clever, and she didn't mind at all if Doug knew it. Mr. Rolfstad, would you mind if we took a quick look around the place? That way we can tick these boxes for our report and be out of your hair. What do you think? Sure, no problem, Doug heard himself say. I need to get going soon, though. I have an appointment in just a few minutes. It'll only take a sec, the cop said. Officer Cronin stayed put next to Doug while Glassbrenner did the exploring, moving slowly from room to room. I don't know if you remember me, he said, but you installed a water heater at my place a couple years back. Doug racked his brain, and suddenly there it was. He pictured him without the uniform, in shorts, t-shirt, and Crocs in the basement of a small house in Mandan. I thought you looked familiar, Doug said. How's that water heater? Probably time for a quick maintenance check, huh? Officer Glassbrenner was back in Mandy's bedroom now. Doug heard the bathroom door open and shut quickly. A second later, she returned into the living room looking satisfied and nodding her approval to her partner. Cronin put his notepad away. We'll get out of your hair now, Mr. Rolfstad. Thanks for your help. You're welcome. I'll tell Mandy about this next time I talk to her. Is this you and your daughter? Officer Glassbrenner had stopped at the bookshelf to study a framed photograph. The manila envelope stuffed with $50,000 of dirty money was an arm's reach away. Doug watched her as her hand moved. She picked up the framed photo. That's right, Doug said. Looks like a beautiful day at the lake, she said, before setting it back down. Her eyes landed on the envelope. Doug's mind froze. Suddenly, he very much wanted a few shots of wild turkey. He wasn't cut out for this shit. His nerves had reached the end of the line. He wanted to go home and work on his boat or watch a game. Anything but all this. He wanted it all over with. What's the appointment? She said, still looking at the envelope. Doug hardly registered the question. Mr. Rolfstad. Sorry, what's that? Doug's eyes followed Glassbrenner as she walked towards him. We're going to get going and get out of your hair. I was just curious what your appointment is. Oh, I'm just meeting a friend for dinner, he said, forcing a smile. Hope you got a reservation, Glassbrenner said, zipping up her jacket. Reservation? Valentine's Day. Restaurants are all packed. Oh, right, Doug said. Well, we'll have to take our chances. Jesus fucking Christ, he thought. Are they going to leave or not? He held the door open for the two cops, and they said their goodbyes. He watched as they slowly made their way to their car. As soon as they finally pulled away and disappeared down the block, Doug picked up the phone and called Mandy. Chapter 26. Mandy laughed. A welfare check? Seriously? Doug wished he could laugh about all this. He knew it probably was funny, and maybe he'd laugh about it someday. But now his nerves were shot. He'd had it with this whole adventure. He sat down on the edge of the armchair and held his hand to his forehead. They talked it through, and Mandy agreed. She'd keep the money. They put Johnny out of business and Mandy out of work. Sure, the money was dirty, but what difference does that really make? Before hanging up, Doug asked, Hey, Mandy, where do you keep the whiskey? I think I need a drink. Look under the sink, she said. Help yourself. You deserve it. Thanks, kiddo. I think I'll do that. Dad, she said. I love you. Let's talk tomorrow. I love you too, kiddo. After promptly calling Peterson and Green to cancel his appointment, Doug found a bottle of whiskey and grabbed a six-pack of Coors Light from the fridge. On the mantel in the living room, he chose a shot glass, Disneyland in white letters wrapped around it, another vacation he had skipped. He plopped himself into Mandy's couch, cracked open the first beer, and poured himself a shot. It went down quickly, and he followed up immediately with 2 more. The heat in his throat and belly began to settle his nerves almost immediately. Cowboy jumped up on the couch and curled up next to him. Doug took off his shoes and socks and massaged his feet with his hand. And there he sat, losing track of time, emptying beer after beer and downing shot after shot of whiskey, his worries finally melting away. Each time he felt the need to pee, he put it off a little longer, too tired, too beat to move. At one point, he heard himself speak out loud. Alex Schatz, poor bastard. He picked up the envelope. He grinned. He'd finally done it, done something for his daughter, and he didn't fuck it up. He didn't go off script. He had simply helped in the most unimaginable and unexpected way. Outside, it was quieter now. The snowblower across the street was long gone, and the wind had settled down. The first hint of early evening was making itself known. He poured himself another shot of whiskey, then knocked it over, the booze spreading across the coffee table. He laughed, refilled, and picked it up carefully and slowly. "Cheers, cowboy," Doug said. "No more dry food for you. It's all salmon and tuna from here on out." Cowboy just stared back at him, unimpressed. "What's the matter, Marshal? You're not the only sheriff in town, you know. Or maybe you don't recognize the new me, huh?" He downed the shot, then reached out to pet Cowboy. "What kind of cowboy are you anyway? Where's your 6-shooter? Doug's hand groped for his parka, his fingers fumbling along until they felt the hard shape. He fished out the gun and held it up. "See? I got mine right here." He spun the cylinder with his thumb, then pointed at the television across the room. The gun slipped from his hand and fell on the coffee table with a loud whack. Doug froze. "Whoa, whoa, whoa," he said. He swallowed slowly, then eased forward. He reached out and picked up the gun, this time between thumb and forefinger, slowly and carefully. He dabbed most of the whiskey from the gun with his sleeve. Then, very carefully, he set the gun down on top of his parka. He shook his head and turned to Cowboy. "Oops, Grandpa almost got one of us shot." The room was starting to spin a little. Suddenly his bladder was ready to burst. He stood up very slowly, then weaved his way towards the bathroom. Outside the kitchen, he half tripped on the edge of a throw rug, collided into the hallway wall, and knocked a framed photograph to the floor. The glass shattered across the hall. Steadying himself with his hand against the wall, he looked down to see Darlene and Mandy looking back at him through the broken glass, a photo taken on the lake, Mandy holding up a northern pike. "Ah, Christ," Doug said. He thought he heard some sound he recognized, but his bladder was starting to scream now. He zigzagged his way into Mandy's bathroom, stood before the toilet, and unzipped. He had no sooner started relieving himself when he heard the sound again. It was coming through the bathroom window, facing the street. Put, put, putty, put, 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 putty, put, 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 putty, put. Chapter 27. Doug panicked. There was no mistaking the sound of the Taurus idling out front. Put, put, putty, put, 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 putty, put. He looked down at the stream of urine gushing into the toilet. He was going to have to stop peeing in a hurry. He felt his pocket with his free hand as if to find the gun there, but even in his intoxicated state, he knew exactly where it was. "Fuck it," he sneered. He pulled his pants up and turned to the door. He weaved quickly down the hall, stepping into the broken glass with his bare feet. He felt a shot of something but kept moving. As he rushed towards the front door, he slammed his shin on the corner of the coffee table and fell to the floor with a crash. Doug yowled, pain shearing through his leg. He rolled onto his side and hugged his pulsating shin. He looked down and saw a shard of glass stuck into his foot near his little toe, blood dripping to the floor. Put, put, putty, put, 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 putty, put. He ignored the pain and managed to stand up and hobble on his good leg to the window. There he was, just like last time, idling in the Ford Taurus in the middle of the street, arm perched in the open window, cigarette smoldering, goatee, tattoos, black and silver rings. Then, Doug watched with terror as the Taurus quickly zipped into Mandy's driveway and parked. The car door swung open immediately. "Fuck me," Doug said, turning towards the couch. He hopped over and grabbed the pistol recklessly with his left hand. Swiftly, he shuffled back to the front door and peeked through the narrow side window. The man was just steps away from the front door now, and sure enough, he was reaching into his inside jacket pocket. He'd be at the door in about 4 seconds. Doug got the gun into his right hand and positioned himself. It all came down to this, apparently. Flashes of Lyons Park passed before him somehow, the Schatz kid half-skinned and mutilated, hanging from a rope. All he had ever wanted to do was go fishing, and yet, apparently, this really was the way the world worked. Eat or be eaten. Doug grabbed the door handle, took a quick breath, and then he pulled the door in a flash, the doorbell sounding at the same time. In full-fledged fight-or-flight mode, Doug grabbed the startled man by the collar of his t-shirt, then pistol-whipped him in the face. He heard a loud crack and a startled groan. The man weaved off balance. With everything Doug had, he tugged at the man and half pulled, half threw him into the entryway, where they crashed together to the floor. The man groaned. Doug pushed himself away, while the man crawled forward a little, then rolled over to his back and stared back at Doug. His eyes were wide and terrified, blood gushed from his broken nose. "What are you?" he managed before falling back to the floor again. Doug propped himself up on his left elbow, his gun in his right hand. "This ends now," Doug screamed, his gun pointing at the man's head. "You fucking psychopaths, you guys fucked up. That's not our problem, that's yours. You stay the fuck away from my daughter." With blood in his left eye, the man coughed while holding up a hand, his forefinger extended, as if he was about to say something. Then, without speaking, he fell back and lost consciousness. Doug heaved like an animal, saliva draining from his mouth, his foot trailing blood. He crawled forward and checked the man's hands. No gun, no knife. Doug leaned in and slid his hand into the man's inside jacket pocket, felt something, and pulled it out. It was an envelope. He looked down at his foot. A small pool of blood was collecting on the wooden floor. He inched away from the man and inspected the envelope. Mandy was written on it in blue ink. He opened it and pulled out a greeting card. On the front it read, "Roses are red, violets are blue. I see you shoveling snow, and I kinda like the view." He opened the card and read it. "Happy Valentine's Day, Mandy. I hope you don't mind. I called the cops to have them check on you because I thought things were looking fishy over there. Some plumber guy over there and newspapers piling up on and off. I apologize if in any way I intruded on your private life. I was just concerned about you. Anyway, I was wondering if you would like to go out to dinner with me sometime. Your neighbor, Jason." Epilogue. Mandy's neighbor, Jason Lindstedt, never pursued Mandy romantically again. What he did pursue was vindication and justice for the brutal attack he suffered at the hands of Doug. He sued Doug, his complaint seeking compensation for damages for medical bills, counseling, lost income, physical pain, mental anguish, and punitive damages to punish Doug's violent conduct. Doug hired Peterson and Green to defend him, but the firm had its work cut out for them. In his drunken stupor, Doug had failed to notice that there were in fact 2 passengers in Jason's car that day. His 2 daughters, aged 9 and 12, had been sitting in the back seat that evening and witnessed the assault on their father. Doug settled out of court and agreed to pay Jason $145,000 in damages. He sold his boat and refinanced his home, yet still he came up short. The court ordered garnishing of Doug's plumbing wages for the duration of the debt. Mandy Rolfstad found a job at the Burger Hut in Mandan. Each month she puts a few dollars away into her Depot Dreams Floral Fund. She hopes to someday open the store, with, or as she now tells people, without the help of her father. Doug Rolfstad is in recovery. When he's not attending AA meetings, he still manages to go fishing. Despite investigations by the Attorney General and Biz City News Channel 13, the folks up on Handshake Row are still there to this day. Somehow they still manage to wind up on the winning side every time. To this day, nobody has come knocking on Mandy's door looking for their missing $50,000 in cash. The end. I hope you enjoyed this story, Dead Cold Drop. They say every tale must teach a lesson, and as my stern second-grade teacher reminded me, no moral is worth its salt without impeccable penmanship. Who would have guessed that a crooked 7 could be the difference between fortune and fatality? So, if there's a final word to be whispered in your ear, let it be this: dirty money is the finest poison, and sometimes the smallest slip of the pen can unleash the deadliest of consequences. Thank you for joining me on Friday Night Fiction. Until next time, sleep tight, and whatever you do, keep your quill steady. Friday Night Fiction is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. This story is created and owned by James Wolner 2025, all rights reserved. No part of this story may be reproduced, distributed, or adapted in any form without explicit written permission. Unauthorized use of this material is strictly prohibited and protected under applicable copyright laws. Check out more at dakotaspotlight.com.